All right, hi everybody. So in this video, I'm going to have a little bit of a grammar lesson. And the reason I'm doing this is because these are a couple of issues that I couldn't easily find the answers to when I did research. As a writer, well, a writer, I really don't make any money off of my books because no one buys them, but whatever. We don't do it for the money, huh? But anyway, sometimes I'll come across some grammar questions, and most of the time the answers are fairly easily found on the internet or by asking people I know. But these are a couple of issues that I really struggled to find the answers to, and so I thought I would make a quick lesson for anyone who has the same problems that I have experienced as far as with grammar goes, not with in life. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about these a little bit today. And we're going to talk about ellipses and nested quotation marks. If you don't know what those are, well, we'll talk about them in a bit. All right, so first of all, we're going to talk about ellipses. Now what these are is it's the dot, dot, dot that you have when, in certain text. Now the thing is about this, with ellipses, is most of the time, if you research grammar on this, it will be done in the context of like academic writing or media writing, in which case they are used to omit a certain part of a quotation that someone has said. Like maybe a politician will say something and they won't want to quote the whole thing, so they'll put in an ellipsis, or are they called ellipses? I don't know. Anyway, to prevent from writing the whole, to avoid having to write the whole thing. Okay, but with me, I write fiction, and in that case, it's used in a slightly different way. And I have found that the grammar for doing this, the rules for doing this, are much more difficult to find. Let me give you an example. All right, so we'll say Steve said, I'm not sure. Okay, now in this case, I use ellipses to indicate hesitancy in his speech. So he'll say, I'm not sure. All right. Now, some sources will tell you to be very sparing in your use of ellipses like this, but I use them a lot because I feel like it adds a certain it adds a certain feeling to my text that I want to, it replicates a certain way that people talk. Or sometimes I'll use it to emphasize certain elements of my prose as well. Okay, so I have to use this a lot. Now, so here's the thing though. How do you do this? Like you can see here, I have a space on either side. But is that correct? Or do you do it this way? Or do you avoid the space altogether? Or do you do it this way? Or do you have a space after each one? What is the correct way? Well, here's the thing. As far as I know, ellipses are pretty much like the Wild West of the grammar world. Anything goes. Pretty much the only definite rule is that you have 3 dots, not 4, not 5, but 3. But beyond that, it's really a matter of personal preference. And I know this because I've seen different rules from very reliable, very official different sources that say different things. And I've even looked at professionally published novels, and they all have different methods as well. So the bottom line is, it's your choice, whatever you want to do. I used to use this method in my first book, but I found it was a little bit awkward because sometimes if you would get to the end of the end of like a line, it would, oh, right, it would carry it over. Like you can see here, we've got 2 on that line. That looks kind of weird. I really don't like that. So what I usually do is, let's make this a little bit smaller. I like to use this method where I just do the 3 dots like that. And then that way, my software will carry it over to the next line. I think that's convenient. But again, it's your choice. Okay, so great. But now what about this? If you say, what if you want to have the ellipses at the end of a sentence? Now, first of all, you can probably avoid this, just by doing this. I don't think so, said Steve. That's fine. And that would maybe be better because you can avoid this. But if you really want those in there, I don't think so, said Steve. If you really want to emphasize that hesitancy, you might want to put them in there. But when you do so, what's the punctuation there? So we can see normally here we have a comma. But what about here? Do you do this and then have a comma? Whoops, that's a period. Or do you put the comma here? Or what? How do you do that? Once again, I think there are different sources that will tell you different things. I believe, according to AP style, I think they usually put a period there. But again, that's usually with newspaper articles. The AP style book doesn't deal with fiction. It deals mostly with newspapers and that sort of thing. But again, bottom line is you will see different methods. What I do, and this is, so again, I think you can do whatever you want. But what I do is I just use that the same way you would use like an exclamation point, right? That's how you would write that. So I just do it that way. And I do that to get the little formatting there. Okay. Again, you might see some people do this, or whatever. But my opinion, keep it simple. So once again, your choice. All right, so anyway, that is ellipses. Let's move on to quotation marks within quotation marks, also known as nested quotes. So let's do this. Whoops. So take a look at this sentence. By the way, in America, we have double quotation marks. And then when you have dialogue within dialogue, by the way, this is a very awkward sentence. That's bad writing. You would probably not do that, but this is just to give you an example. All right. Anyway, and then we put the single quotes in it like that. In England, I think, in British English, I think it's reversed. They put single quotes on the outside and double quotes on the inside. Also in British English, I believe they put the periods on the outside of the quotes. But anyway, so this is American English. So anyway, so this is the deal. You've got the quotation marks here, the quotation marks here. Now, what about at the end? What about this? Is that right? Well, once again, the wild west of grammar. And I've actually asked professional copy editors, people who work for newspapers, about this, and it kind of stumped them too. Here's what I found out. This is okay, but sometimes you can do this as well. Or sometimes you can even make spell checker doesn't like it, but it's okay. And also you can put a half space here. I don't know how you do that with this software, but there's a way to do that, which you might want to do. I don't, because I'm lazy and I don't feel like dinking around with software. If you've ever seen any of my other videos and know how amateurish they are, you already know that. But anyway, bottom line, either of these methods are okay, whichever you prefer. Generally, I like to do this. But in this book, I do it this way, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. But yes, so there's that. Okay, so what about when you have quotation marks in quotation marks in quotation marks? This is something I ran into this with this book that I've written here. Okay, I have a priest in this book who sometimes quotes imaginary scripture. And so there'll be parts where he'll be speaking in the book, and then he'll quote a Bible verse, and in the Bible verse, God will be speaking in that. So you've got layers upon layers of these quotation marks. Let's see here if I can find this. So you can see here we have the Our priest is, he's quoting some scripture here. And so you've got a Bible verse where the Lord is talking within, speech. So you can look at this here. So you've got God talking in the Bible, spoken by the priest. And so again, you could do this, I guess. No one's told me that you couldn't, but that looks kind of weird, and I think it's going to be hard in my reader's eyes. So I separate it with spaces like that. And because I did it here, anytime I have nested quotation marks like this, I put that space in them, right? Because that's, I think, more important than anything is that whichever method you choose, that you're consistent throughout the text or the manuscript. And I think as long as you do that, and keep a mind for what's easiest for your readers to understand, I think you'll be okay. Anyway, I hope that was a helpful lesson for you. If it was, like and subscribe. All right. So there you go. Have a good one, folks.